Hello again and welcome in this Boeing 737 video tutorial. And this video will be going over the DME ARC, how to build a DME ARC manually in the CDU. For this video we are taking this example for this airport Victor India Juliet Papa ILS runway 27. Now as you can see this approach here have two arcs, either if you are coming from the north or from the south. And for our example we will simulate that you are coming from the south. And as you can see there are a couple of few airways here to join the arc. So usually for an approach like this, it will be in the database of the FMC. But for practices, we'll do it manually, just in case you don't have it in the database or if you want to do any DME ARC around any station. A few things I would like to point out here before we start the simulation is, as you can see, the 14 DME is indicated on the airway here, and this means that you start your turn at 14 DME to join the 12 DME ARC. And the other thing is the lead radial here 096, and this radial, once you reach it, then you will turn toward the localizer to join the localizer. For an approach like this, it's important that you monitor the VR and have the VR up at least with the pilot monitoring, just to have a backup and to verify that you are doing the DME ARC correctly, since this is not an RNAV approach. I'm just taking this airport as an example on how to manually build the DME ARC using the CDU. So now let's go to PMDG and we'll show the demonstration there. Okay, so here we are cruising at flight level 240. The VR is tuned and identified. And we are to the southwest of the station, as you can see, and a radial of about 216 or so. And we can verify by selecting the position here. So we are on radial of 216, and that is the radial that we are in. The bearing to the station is the reversal of that, and I'm going to have a link here to another video describing the difference between the bearing and the radial, which is a very important concept for the pilots to understand, especially when they are doing a position report. I still see experienced pilots who get the two confused, and this could be very dangerous if you are doing a position report, because it is a 180 difference might be between the two. So we are on the radial of 216, as I said, to the southwest of the station, with about 40 miles or so to our top of descent. For loading the approach and doing the briefing, I recommend 80 miles before the top of descent you start doing it, unless you know that ATC in this area will give you some step down descents, or the airspace is busy, then you might do the briefing before. Okay, so now I'm gonna pull up the CDU and we'll start loading the approach. In the database here in the FMC we have the ARC, and I'm gonna just simulate it here for loading the ILS Zulu runway 27, and then we'll pick any transition just to show you the ARC, and there's the ARC. I'm gonna go to the plan mode here and we can step to the ARC. So as you can see, there is one of the arcs. It's starting from this transition, which is not on our way. We are coming this way to the airport, and we can try loading the other transition and see. Okay, so this is even after our points, just showing you that the DME ARC could be available in the FMC. So what I do usually in the before I build the DME ARC is I go to the next page, take the viewer, go to the fix, and put it here as a fix, and then put a ring around it 12 miles, which is the arc that I'm planning to do. So /12, and then if I go again back to the plan mode here and step, you can see a ring around the airport 12 miles. And this ring will help me to make sure that all the waypoints that I put are actually on the correct DME from the viewer and in the right direction. Also, for any reason, if I want to do it manually, then I can use the ring as a visual aid to help me maintain the arc. So I'll go back to the next page, take the viewer again, and then /-12 miles. And that is just to pull a point along your route 12 miles from the viewer, and that's going to be our first point on the DME arc. And as you can see, it is there. Now a good spacing between the points is 10 degrees. So if every 10 degrees you put 1 point all the way to the lead radial into the localizer. So again, we'll take the viewer, and now we want to put a point here 10 degrees from this one, and still at 12 miles. And now our bearing to the viewer is 021. So you need to take the reverse to find the radial, and a good technique to do that is the plus 2 minus 2 method. So we are on a bearing of 021. So you go plus 2. So it's going to be 2 minus 2. So that's going to be 0 and then 1. So we are on a radial of 201, or we will be on a radial of 201 once we are tracking inbound to the viewer. So 201 radial minus 10, it's going to be 191, and then slash 12. So it's always a radial and then a DME, and then you put this over at the viewer, and then I'm going to step back again to see the ring, and I'll zoom in or reduce the range, and as you can see, this is our second point on the arc. And then we'll continue doing the same thing. We'll take the viewer again, and we'll subtract another 10 degrees. So we'll go 181 slash 12. Now if you put this point over at the viewer here, you'll have two discontinuities. You'll have its continuity after this point, and then you'll have the point, and then discontinuity again, and then the viewer. And if you keep on continuing doing that, you'll end up with a lot of discontinuities. So let me delete this point. I'm gonna do it again. And this time when you put it here, not over the viewer. So the first point only that you need to put it over the viewer, and after that you just put your point in the discontinuity. So I believe we are at a radial of 181 now, slash 12, and I'll go to the previous page and put it here, and let me step, and as you can see, the point is right on the arc and after the last point that we put. Okay, so let's say by mistake I took the viewer, and for some reason I got distracted. I put, instead of 171, which is our next point now, I put 200 at 12, and I put it here under the last point. So in this case, if you do any mistake in entering the points, do not erase, because if you erase, you lose all the points that you built already. So just relax, delete the mistake, and then continue. And we started with 191, 181, and now 171. So go again, take the viewer, 171 slash 12, and then again put it in the discontinuity. And our point now 06 is in the right sequence, and it's here. So you keep on continuing this until the leading radial, as I said earlier, which is 096. So I'm going to accelerate the process so you can just see it. So the last point was 101 radial 12 DME. The next one is going to be 091 12, but the leading radial, remember, it was 096. So the last point is going to be the leading radial now. We'll not use the 91. We'll take the VR again on 096 slash 12, and that's going to be the last point on the arc, and then we'll turn toward the localizer. So this is a longer arc, and as I said, usually this type of arc of approaches should be available in the nav database, but for any reason if it is not there, or if you want to do a DME ARC that is not published, then this is the way to do it. Good other point is also to execute like halfway or after 4 points or 5 points, so in case you need to erase for any reason, you'll not lose anything. So we'll confirm with the other pilot and then execute, and this is your ARC now. Now let's say that for some reason ATC gave you a heading and then asked you again to the clearance was to track back direct to the viewer. Then you'll not be able to use the first point, but depends on your position. Go direct to the viewer, Juliet Papa, pull a 12-mile point from the viewer and see where it will end, and then connect it to the point next to it. So you delete whatever is before. If however you end up on the other side, coming from here, then you might need to build more points to connect it to the arc that you have already built. So now the arc is there, we need to load the ILS approach. So I'll go with this ILS 27 Yankee, and there's no transition here or star. Go to the legs page, as always, verify what you have, and then connect the point before the final approach fix to your arc. Confirm. So we'll connect the last point in the arc to this point here. Confirm and execute. As you can see, I still have the VR here, so no, this is not correct. We'll put this point here in the scratch pad and we'll close the discontinuity. So that's it. Now you have your arc and it is connected to the localizer. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here to the map mode, and I'll accelerate even this part until approaching the arc, and then we'll continue from there. We are on the descent now, approaching the VR, 28 miles, and as I said earlier, the pilot flying should have the localizer tuned and identified in his side, and the pilot monitoring will maintain the viewer until turning toward the localizer. So here the DME is going to be out of number 1 for the viewer, and the localizer is tuned and identified in number 2. So remember the lead radials from the Victor Airways that was shown into the chart was showing 14 miles as initial approach fix. And the PMDG here will do the same thing. It's going to be a smart turn, so 14 miles the airplane will start to turn to intercept the arc. The real airplane will do a very good job maintaining the arc, but in PMDG here for some reason the tolerance is a little bit wide. So you need to observe and comply with the tolerance by the aviation authority in the airspace you are flying in. Alright, so now we are approaching 14 miles, and as you see, the airplane is turning toward the arc now, so we'll adjust our heading. Usually start with the 90 degrees to whatever heading you had before, and you need to adjust your heading as you go. So as a pilot, you need to keep on monitoring the DME from the viewer and making sure that the airplane is complying with the tolerance, as I said earlier. And for any reason, if it is exceeding the or approaching to exceed the tolerance, then go ahead and use heading select to adjust the heading manually and control the DME from the viewer. So we are now about 0.5 miles. So this is the maximum that we got close to the VR, which is very good. It's not bad. So we are now about 1 mile from the VOR. It gets to about 1.7 or 1.8. For me personally, I'll go and select heading select and adjust the arc manually. Of course, if there is any speed restriction in the approach, then you need to follow it. And now I'm letting just the VNAV figure out the deceleration point. As I said earlier, this is just a demo on how to build the DME ARC and not discussing the approach itself as an approach. Even the lead-in radial here, you need to be careful and make sure that you turn as you cross the lead radial and not before. And I believe the airplane here will do a smart turn, so it might turn slightly before the 0906 radial. And we can monitor that actually by putting the position here. So we are on radar 123 now. I'm going to continue adjusting the heading. And now we are at 13.8 miles, and as I said earlier, for me personally, I'll go ahead at this point and use heading select and turn inside the circle. Just make sure that you stay within the 12 miles. The airplane will do a much better job than PMDG in terms of flying the arcs actually. I'm going to start configuring now since we are decelerating to the approach on VNAV speed, as you can see in the BFD. And we are right now on the maximum of the tolerance. As you get closer, then you will just put the final approach course heading. And we are at transition, so let me reset the altimeters as well. Okay, so the airplane here turned about on a radial of 100, so that is about 4 radials prior. It should be fine, but as I said earlier, you need to check with your company, your training department, to make sure that you are doing the approach correctly if you are building the arc yourself. I think this turn is a little bit sharp from the arc toward the localizer. I did not notice that this is about 8 miles or 9 miles final. Usually the approaches that I am used to, the point before the final approach fix is a 12 miles fix, and if you put the 12 miles here and then connect it to the lead-in radial last point that you put here, then you'll have a better turn from the arc toward the localizer. So just to confirm again, the runway is 6.4 miles from this point, and this point that we connected to the arc is 2 miles, so that is 8.4. 12 minus 8.4 is 3.6. So what I can do is just pull this point and take a bearing from it, or a radial. It's going to be opposite to what is here. That's going to be 084 slash 3.6. And then I'll put it on the same point. Make sure to select the right coordinate. And as you can see now, we have almost a 12 point final, and I'm going to connect this point to it, and I'll execute. So now as you can see, it's a better turn from the last point in the arc toward the localizer, and we can double check that by checking one of the ILS's with the arc built in. So go to ILS Zulu with any transition, go to the legs page now and step to the last point. As you can see, it's almost the same point. So I'm going to just execute here. So it's closer this way if you put the last point in the arc, connect it to the initial approach fix for the ILS, or the point before the final approach fix, provided that point is very close to your arc, not as we did earlier, which was about 9 miles final. And that ended up in doing a very sharp turn from the arc toward the localizer. Something to think about And again, with practicing, with doing the arcs, then you'll get a better handle on it. So I wanted to make this this point clear, because you need to verify and see how's the airplane is gonna move in the approach. And we'll continue now. And as you turn toward the localizer, go ahead and arm the approach. So vol lock, glide slope arm. And at this point, the pilot monitoring will join the pilot flying in setting the localizer frequency. And we'll continue the normal configuration at 8 miles or so from the runway. Gear down flaps 15, and then 6 miles or so, flaps 13 on the checklist. I'm gonna turn the position now just to declutter the Hindi. So vol lock capture. Then we are about 900 miles or so. So 8 miles usually for me, I drop the gear and the flaps 15. And the glide slope capture, and then you'll set the missed approach altitude. And that's it. There's the runway. You continue to hopefully a smooth landing, but most importantly, a safe landing. So that's it for the DME ARC. Sorry for